Tommy Rex, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host. Incarceration, America's rock, metal, and tattoo festival returns this summer with Limp Bizkit, Disturbed, Bad Omens, plus Gojira, Papa Roach, A Day to Remember, Motionless in White, Ice Nine Kills, Cypress Hill, The Used, and so many more. Incarceration at the Ohio State Reformatory, July 17th to 19th. Passes on sale now at incarceration.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle, and I was just taking a trip down memory lane with Michael from the band Voivod. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm great. Things are happening really fast. We're leaving for 3 months in Europe very soon, and have the new live album with the Quebec Symphony Orchestra coming out June 5th, and so a lot of things happening. We have also a video game coming out called Nuclear Warrior, based on the old end of 80s, early 90s aesthetics for videos. And the documentary We Are Connected is coming out soon as well. And we just released a big book by Jeff Wagner called Always Moving. And in between tours and promoting the live album, we are writing and recording a new album. So wow. It's a pretty busy times.
Big year for you guys, huh?
Oh yeah, it's exciting. We're actually more popular than ever and enjoying a good momentum. So might as well play live shows and put out albums. And
yeah, exactly. Well, usually when I have people on for the first time, I like to go way back in time and ask, when you were a little kid, what did you originally want to be when you grew up?
Well, I always remember drawing stuff. That's for sure. It's mainly in the mid-70s when a magazine called Metal Hurlant, which became Heavy Metal magazine. It's a comic book, very sci-fi. And it came out in the mid-70s. I was about 11, 12 years old. And that's really where I decided I wanted to be a comic book artist. And that's actually when I started creating the Voivod character and Morgoth. It was a concept for future comic books I was gonna make. But around the same time, I really got into I got into the Beatles. I saw Ringo on TV. I think it was a movie, Help, and banging on the drums, and the cymbals were going crazy. I was like, wow, this looks pretty cool. And then I started playing drums, and I discovered KISS and Alice Cooper. And then shortly after, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. Then I thought, okay, I still have a lot to learn on drums, and I kept going, And punk came about when I was in high school, and then but I was also very interested in science. So I was going to school in science. So I was not too sure if I was going to be a scientist, a comic book artist, or a musician. But in 1980. It's the new wave of British heavy metal that really pushed me into thinking it would be fun to become a heavy metal drummer. It's where I started to take it seriously when I heard the first Iron Maiden album, Judas Priest, British Steel, and Motorhead, Ace of Spades. Then I really got into it, and I decided that I was going to become a drummer. But it's only like when the first album from Voivod, War and Pain, came out in '84, that I quit school. I was going in science at university then, and I quit school because the album had a pretty strong impact, and I thought maybe it could be doable to do it professionally. Even though I'm a French Canadian from northern Quebec, maybe I can do it, you know. And here am I today, 43 years later. After we formed in January '83, so it's been a long while.
Yeah. Now, who was some of your inspirations drumming wise that you chose to play drums?
Yeah. Well, when I was about 10, it was Ringo, and then maybe it was I think in '75 when I asked for Kiss Alive 1 for Christmas, and I got it. And then all my family members were like, put it on. So I put it on, and they were like, take it off. I was like, yeah, my new favorite band. And then I started to play heavier. Then I saw the movie Welcome to the Nightmare by Alice Cooper, and I really got into it. But it's my sister's new boyfriend that showed up with a muscle car and 8-track tapes of Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and I really got into Deep Purple, the drumming. I don't know how you pronounce it, Ian Pacey maybe, and then I started to play faster and faster, and then as I was saying earlier, when I was in high school, there was the punk explosion, so I really got into the Pistols and the Damned and Rat Scabies and Paul Cook, and I started to add more toms to my playing and became more tribal. And but all this time I was listening to a lot of prog rock, and I was a big fan of Christian Varda from Magma, Guy Evans from Van der Graaf, and also Terry Bozzio was playing in Zappa, and so I started to a very important Robert Wyatt from Soft Machine. So I started to be more proggy and more jazzy, but still pretty hard rock. But it's really Clive Burr and Filthy Animal Taylor that impressed me the most. You know, like that's probably the two drummers I copied the most.
And then when you started like playing out, like what was the music scene like in where you grew up at?
When we started, there was only one other heavy metal band up north where we grew up, and it was Death Dealer. They were more Iron Maiden oriented, as we were more like Venom, Discharge, you know, and the scene was not big at all. And when we moved to Montreal in '85, we were still the only very heavy band in Montreal. Everybody was playing either hair metal like Motley Crue or playing covers of Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, you know. And so it took a couple of years before similar bands started to pop there and there in Montreal. And Aggression, Damnation, DBC, and on our end, it did take a couple of albums before we were able to tour internationally. And so we were playing for a couple of years. We were playing only in the province of Quebec and a couple of shows in Ontario. But then once we got the deal with Noise for the Roar album, that's where we started to tour. So and that at this point we had thrash metal was exploding, so there were tons of bands everywhere, so it was pretty exciting. The first US tour was with Celtic Frost in '86. First Euro tour was with Possess in '86 as well. So these were pretty eventful shows, I can tell you.
And then like you were talking about, like when you were doing the comic book art, that Voivod was a character that you had created originally. Now, explain to the audience like what Voivod is, the character, before it evolved into becoming the band.
Yeah, I saw the name in the Bram Stoker book, Dracula, and where they explained that Dracula was a voivod. It was sort of a warlord title in Transylvania, and so I thought the name sounded great, and I created my own voivod guarding the planet Morgoth, which was more like Dungeons and Dragons oriented from the Lord of the Rings, and but it's when slowly but surely the concept became more apocalyptic with the Cold War, and then also I saw in the early 80s I saw a documentary called If You Love This Planet by the National Film Board of Canada about nuclear stockpiles everywhere. And then there were like a couple of like early cyberpunk movies like Mad Max, Blade Runner, Terminator, also made for TV movies like The Day After and Threads. So the concept became really nuclear war oriented. So once we formed the band, when Snake joined in January '83, we were looking for a name, and I mentioned Voivod, and then they thought it was interesting, and I explained the concept, and we ended up developing the concept all through the '80s, which was very sci-fi oriented, but based on events that were happening on our planet. But we're still doing that these days. We put the concept aside for a few albums because Snake thought it was too restrictive. But the next studio album that we're writing is a full-on concept album with the Kogul character from the Voivod saga coming back, and it's pretty fun. And we can only afford to record 3 songs at a time because of the busy schedule. But it's moving slowly but surely towards something that will probably sound like a dystopian movie soundtrack. I think it's influenced by the concerts we did with the symphony orchestras in Montreal and Quebec.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. Now, I was going through your catalog and listening to some of the older tracks along the way, and when you mentioned how you started getting involved in more like tribal music and stuff was influencing your drumming. I heard that with Tribal Convictions, that single. You want to talk a little bit about inspiration writing that song?
Well, I came up with the beat on the intro, and at this point, I really got into what we called alternative music at this point, like Killing Joke, Bauhaus, and my style became even more tribal. And even though my roots are in heavy metal, I always try to include post-punk elements to my playing. And I think that this song was a demonstration of that. And also for this album, Damage and Hatros, we had become even more progressive rock than the previous 3 albums. On the first 3 albums, we were trying to go into prog rock mode as much as we could, but I think only Piggy could achieve that musically. we were still trying to catch up with him. But between '83 and '89, we must have rehearsed every night. So we learned to play our respective instruments very quickly. And by the Damage and Hatros with Tribal Convictions on it, is the first album where I'm happy with my playing personally, and I feel like I can't really hear mistakes. On the first 3 albums, I can, but it was a very the first 3 albums were recorded very quickly, everybody live in one room, and where after you do a couple of takes, it's like, okay, how many mistakes did you do? Oh, 3. And what about you? Oh, 2. And then it's like, okay, that's the one. But starting with Damage and Atros, we had a better setup. Harris Jones in Berlin at Music Lab had bought a new studio with new gear. We had more time to record. And so it's really the first album that became very experimental, you know.
Yeah. Now, you were talking earlier too about like when the band formed, like you know, some of the inspiration for you guys was like, you know, the fear and the stuff that was going on in the world, like a nuclear, you know, war and stuff like that. But as you continued on, you're writing, a lot of your music seems to inspire or talk about like a dystopian future, you know, and the war and the technology, and now here we are, you know, now we're kind of like living in that. When you were writing that, you know, did you obviously you didn't know it was going to become a reality, but or hope not, at least, but you know, here we are today.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the sci-fi has caught up with us for sure. I think that in the beginning, of course, you know, it was very nuclear war oriented. But as we started to tour, I remember we were buying, let's say at the airport, we would buy Omni magazine, Discover magazine, and we were trying, Snake and I, to move along with the concept. We were trying to figure what's going to happen in 20, 30 years down the road, reading these magazines. And so we were basing the concept on expectations and from scientists. And these days, it's harder to predict what's going to happen next week. So the lyrics, I feel, these days are more anchored into the present, which is sci-fi enough. And especially, like, let's say, when I was very young, I saw this movie, Colossus. It was a movie made in 1970 or something, where a supercomputer, Colossus in USA, gets in touch with a supercomputer in Russia called Guardian, and then they start communicating in a different language that nobody can understand, and then they take control of nuclear weapons, and humanity is enslaved. So it's pretty much where we are now. So we just have to with AI. I mean, you know, and it's going so quickly that it's actually fun to pick from what's going on. Although scary, but we always did that. Like back on Killing Technology, we were like basically talking about the Chernobyl accident, Challenger explosion, Reagan Star Wars project, and then it's like a recurring nightmare where after that you talk about Fukushima, and we used to talk about acid rain and the ozone layer, and now it's like global warming and so on and so on. And a couple of years ago, for the 40th anniversary tour, we were playing Brutal Assault in Czech Republic, and the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine, was being bombarded. So, you know, it's like, it's always like, these are crazy times we live in, and we could feel powerless, but we decided to talk about it in our songs under the form of sci-fi folk tales, but still we hope to awaken younger people to the fact that this planet is really in danger of being totally destroyed.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you know, as we mentioned, I mean, you guys have been together as a band, you know, discovering yourself, creating this, your art, for a long period of time. What do you think has contributed to the longevity of this band?
It's hard to tell. I mean, maybe what I was just talking about, the fact that we were like trying to warn people about the environment, war, high tech weaponry. Maybe maybe people feel we're still relevant, but then again, you know, thrash metal is more popular than ever, and we share stages with bands that we used to tour with in the 80s: Exodus, Testament, Megadeth, Creator, Destruction. So it's pretty fun. We meet all the time at festivals, and we like Sepultura, and we always we talk about it. How come we are still popular and probably more popular than ever? And we think that it's because thrash metal talked about the destruction of the planet, and that it's just now back into the headlines. For a while in the 90s, I was still talking about nuclear war and nuclear weaponry in interviews, and journalists were telling me that I was retro. And but I was thinking, no, you know, the high-tech weaponry is crazier than ever, and now, of course, you have swarms of drones, and so I think it's, of course, the danger of nuclear confrontation is back into the headlines now, and so I think that's why we are still relevant, maybe.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask too, like the current the album that's just about to get released. Are you talking about working with the orchestra, Symphonique?
Yeah.
What you know, what kind of inspired you to? I mean, because you guys have been established a long time. What kind of inspired this concept for you guys to take this on?
Well, it was a dream of ours, and we already had like a string quartet on the album The Wake. We had a brass quintet on the End of Dormancy EP. Chewy, our guitar player, teaches jazz at college, so he can chart everything. And so, but we never expected to be playing with a symphony orchestra one day. And I did an interview. There is this magazine here in town in Montreal. It's homeless people selling this magazine called Itinéraire, itinerary, or I don't know how to say it in English. And so I did an interview for that magazine, and because I'm very involved with all kinds of organizations in Montreal helping people in difficulties. And so it was published in the magazine and put online, and the musician playing solo bassoon for the Montreal Symphony Orchestra is a heavy metal dude, and he saw it and brought the article to the Montreal Symphony Orchestra directors, and I came back from touring from Europe with Voivod, and I had a message on my answering machine. It was the Montreal Symphony Orchestra looking for me. So it's really amazing how the way it happened. So this was about 3 years ago, and so we spent a couple of years building the show. First, we had to pick the songs, then the order of the songs, then we have an arranger from the orchestra, Hugo Bégin, working closely with Chewy and on the orchestrations. And so I was mainly I was very busy actually supplying art that would be animated for the screen behind the stage, with different artists using different mediums: 2D animation, 3D animation, AI, everything mixed. And so we were working with the conductor Dina Gilbert, and she was really involved with us because there are so many breaks in the music. So we really worked hard on putting the show together until we played 2 shows early last year in Montreal, and then we were offered to do the same thing in Quebec City with the Quebec City Symphony, with the Quebec Symphony Orchestra, the exact same show, but different visuals. And so that's the show we recorded, and that's we will release on vinyl and CD.
Now, you mentioned too, the song set list or whatever for this. What what was that process like? Because these are all songs from your past. Are these like personal favorites or like a best of?
Well, yeah, I think we tried to pick songs like we did an overview of our career, but picked songs that were more on the prog rock territory, because they were these songs that have many movements, and we thought it could be a good match for with the orchestra, and some of the songs, mainly from the Nothing Face album, already had some modern composers bits. We were very really into Shostakovich, Bartok, Penderecki, and we sort of tried to translate bits of that type of modern classical music into metal, into Voivod. And so there were songs like Pre-Ignition that already had a bit that's influenced by the Rites of Spring by Stravinsky, and so we picked songs that had bits of that kind of sounded like modern classical in a way. And also we had songs like Forgotten in Space that's influenced by Mad Max 2 Road Warrior, that we thought could be very scary with an orchestra. It turned out very good. We really wanted to try Astronomie Dominée, the Syd Barrett song by Pink Floyd, with an orchestra, and it was amazing. We sort of skipped the very trashy stuff, although I know all the members of both orchestras will have been able to play anything because they can play very fast stuff like Paganini, for example. But we did try, we did pick Nuclear War from the first album, because we thought it could become a very scary military march with an orchestra. So once we picked the songs, we tried to figure an order where it could feel like a long journey for the audience, and like a sci-fi movie soundtrack. And that's another dream of ours. Hopefully someday we can do a soundtrack for a sci-fi movie. That would be amazing.
Yeah. And then so the album Symphonique comes out June 5th, but if fans want to get a taste of what to expect, you have the single Forgotten in Space is out now for them to check out. Why did you choose that one for the first single?
Oh, because it's somehow it's really majestic with the orchestra, but I'm really pleased with everything on the album. And the second single, End of Dormancy, have some great reactions right now, and it's also a song that was influenced by like old movies like Ben-Hur, and Chewie wrote most of it, and this one also sounded like a older movie soundtrack. And but I think the song that surprised me the most is called Fall. It's more of a new song from the Post Society EP, and we thought it could be cool with an orchestra, but at all 3 shows we did, we had a standing ovation after that song. And I think it's one of the songs that really come off great with the orchestra. This one and Into My Hypercube, is also another one that really surprised me when I heard the final mix. I was like, oh my God, this is like almost emotional, like the vibe, with the orchestra. And I must say the arrangements are really fantastic by Hugo Bégin. And I remember mentioning to him the early cyberpunk movies like Mad Max, Terminator, Blade Runner, but I also mentioned the old Planet of the Apes movies, which had like avant-garde music into the soundtrack. And so I think he really understood what we were aiming for.
Now, I know that the album of this concert will be coming out June 5th, but is there any talk of releasing a complete like video version of the concert as well?
We didn't film the shows in Montreal and the one show in Quebec. It's because of the union, and it's just insanely expensive. And so we decided to go for the audio in Quebec City, which was already tens of thousands of dollars. But I think we're going to recoup with the sales of the vinyl and CDs. Early next year, in January, we will do the same show in northern Quebec, in Saguenay, where we formed the band in 1983 with the local orchestra. I'm hoping we can film it and release it on Blu-ray and DVD one day, but we would need some kind of a grant from the government or something, because it's just too expensive for us. And we're working on it, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be amazing to see for sure. But it obviously a lot better to be there in person to experience it.
Yes, well, we know that many people traveled from all around the world to see the Montreal and Quebec shows, but I know it's really difficult and expensive. So that's why we are really excited to at least release a CD and a vinyl that people can enjoy. And so it's a pretty exciting project, really, and it's also coming out right when we start a long stretch in Europe in June, July, and August. So it's a good momentum.
Yeah, be able to support it over there. Hopefully, I mean, well, I'm wondering, like, I know it's a global economy we're dealing with, and with gas prices we're being hit with here. I don't know if it's easier to, if it's any different over there. But yeah, I know a lot of musicians and bands are struggling right now with their budgets just to travel.
Yeah, it's really, man, it's really hard to justify going on the road sometimes. Post-pandemic, we realized as soon as we started to tour internationally after COVID, we realized everything was more expensive. Everybody was trying to catch up. And so hotels, tour bus, even the gas, and even the crew was more expensive because they were trying to catch up from 2 years of doing nothing. And now with the war in Iran and the gas prices going crazy, we planned a budget for what's coming up this summer, but I'm not exactly sure the numbers are going to match in the end. So it's always a scary experience. Thank God the people into Voivod are really loyal, and they show up at the shows. And not only that, but they buy a lot of merch. And so it always saves the tours that we do these days, always. We just did a stretch in USA, and just the first show, we sold so much merch. We had to order more. So it's a good thing.
And then a lot of that merch that you're talking about, that's your artwork on a lot of that as well. How does that feel, seeing people walking around wearing something you created?
It's amazing. And it's what amazes me the most is to see the Voivod tattoos. It's sometimes it's the whole back, and and it's there for life. I don't even have a tattoo. I made so many tattoo designs in my life for other people, but I don't have one, and I'm always impressed when I see it on somebody's skin. It's so I don't take it for granted. And I when I saw the first Iron Maiden album cover in 1980, it stuck out in the record store I walked in, and I immediately grabbed it. And I looked at the back, the band, and then the front cover, and I thought, this is my new favorite band. And I had no idea how they sounded like, and I bought it and I brought it home. And back then you couldn't really listen to it on YouTube, And so when I put the needle on, it was exactly what I wanted to hear, and like mixed of metal, punk, prog rock, goth rock, and they became my favorite band. And when time came to do the first album cover in 84 for War and Pain on Metal Blade, I sort of paid homage to the first Iron Maiden album cover, and I thought it has to attract the eye of the kid walking into the store, And I think I succeeded, and so people were like waiting for the next album to see where the Voivod was going to go next on the front cover and in the concept and all that. So I never stopped doing art for T-shirts, front cover, and it's fun. People like really sometimes buying 4 or 5 shirts at a show, because they don't know which one to pick.
Yeah, it's a good problem for you guys, for them to have, right?
Yes, it's amazing. And so I along the years I tried to I studied in science at university, so I didn't have any art training. So that's why in the mid-80s I started to do digital art to accelerate the process, and I always kept up with technology since. But on the road, I always draw with a pen on a paper. Quite often, I use the hotel notepad and the hotel pen. So sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue, and I always post it online. Every night, I do a drawing after the show. I love to walk around the club to check the architecture, and then so at the end of the night, I draw I express my day in every city with a drawing, and I post it online. So although I do a lot of my professional art on my iPad with a digital pen, I will never stop drawing on a piece of paper.
Nice.
I did stop painting with acrylic a while back, though.
Gotcha. Now, before we get ready and wrap up, I want to ask you a couple questions I normally ask my guests that I have on here.
Mm-hmm.
Who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
I would say Peter Hamill from Van der Graaf Generator. I also met him, which was amazing because he's a hero of mine, and a singer, pianist, guitar player for Van der Graaf Generator, very weird, scary prog rock band from UK. And I met him at Prog Magazine Award, where Voivod won the Visionary Award, and in London at Shakespeare Theatre. So I had to go there to grab the trophy, and I met Peter Hamill. He was talking to me in French, actually, amazing. And the other one would be Terry Bozzio on drums, and his discipline really. Peter Hamill would be for his DIY vision of doing things. Yeah, it was his own way, and his signature, his own label. Terry Bozzio is like the discipline of playing such intricate stuff so precisely, and so is definitely one of my inspirations. And the other one would be Philippe Drouillet, which is a comic book artist that was doing drawings for Heavy Metal magazine, and I copied him a lot. So I would say these 3 people has forged my artistic style. but there are so many other people that that forge my intellectual mind. It's hard to express for me in a second language, but they are like the people who wrote books that really, really influenced me, and people who did movies like Eraserhead by David Lynch totally changed my art. And there's a writer, Bruno Schulz from Poland, who used to do very weird short stories with very strange drawings. And so I have a lot of heroes, but I'm going to be 63 in a few days. So along the decades, I got to discover many things, and traveling all around the planet for so many years was a great thing for me, because I could hit the underground bookstores everywhere, and mainly in San Francisco, and come back with too many books.
Yeah, behind my green screen, trust me, I got way too many books as well. I'm like you.
When I retire, I can read them all.
Yeah, exactly. Or when technology shuts down and we got nothing to do but candlelight, and and then you mentioned like you're very involved in organizations up there.
Yeah.
Is there one in particular that you want to give a shout out to and encourage others to check out?
There's an organization called Les Impatients, the Impatients, and it's people who help other people who have difficulties to play. It's art by music and drawings, and it's people who have difficulties in general in life to move along, and they formed a band, a therapeutic band called the Big Bang Band, and I play drums with them on their albums and at live shows, and it's really it's one of my favorite things. They do like exhibitions with art exhibitions, and it's one of my favorite organizations. But I'm really involved with shelters for homeless people, and that other organization called L'Itinéraire, and it's like they do this this paper that homeless people can sell on the corner of the street, and that's what led to the Symphonique shows. With it, to me, it's karma.
Yeah, and then we talked about being book collectors, as I am as well, but I also still collect toys. I haven't grown up completely. So, favorite toy as a child?
Oh man, I had when I was a kid, I don't know why, I had a problem. I was stressed out, and I was blinking a lot. Some of my friends called me Kodak, and my mother was wondering what I had, and she wanted to take me to the doctor. I was really young, and then I didn't want to go to the doctor, and then she said, "I'll buy you I'll go to the store with you after you can pick a toy." And then all right, and then so after I went to the doctor, I went to the store and I bought a robot, like a battery or operated robot. And then it would move along, spin around, and then it would stop. And then there was these two doors opening, and there was a little scientist inside manipulating the thing. And this was like just kind of a Cracker Jack image where you turn it around a bit and it changes movements. And then, but anyway, the whole there were lights in the eyes were blinking, so I wish I still had that toy today. Sometimes I look online to find it. It must have been very rare because I never saw anything like it. Yeah, and it was truly my favorite one. And I've always been obsessed with sci-fi toys. And at one point, I was buying many battery-operated spaceships and robots on tour. And along with the boxes of books I was bringing, it was just insane. And sometimes I would put the boxes in my bunk in the tour bus, and I would sleep in the back lounge. There was one night, one of the winding sci-fi toy started going crazy with noises in one of the boxes, and I couldn't find the proper box, and I woke everybody up.
That's awesome. And then before we, for anybody out there that may be actually new hearing about Voivod, want to support you guys and see where you're touring or check your music out, where would you send them?
I would send them to voivod.com. Everything is updated daily. It's just a crazy website with all the archives and everything. The shows are there. Otherwise, they can go to our official Facebook page and the official Instagram. And so we try to keep it pretty updated, and people can find us on socials, and but mainly if they want to see where we're going next, voivod.com is the place.
Awesome. Well, hey, it was great talking with you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully maybe another run after Europe. Hopefully things settle down price-wise, and you guys can come back through Cleveland, and I can come out to the show.
Yeah, we're hoping to do that actually in October. So
nice.
So we might be in your neighborhood around October. Hopefully with that again, because we did a run with Dan in March. We did the Hell's Heroes, and then we a bunch of shows around there, and it was really great. So we want to do it again, but in other states in October.
Nice. Well, good. I hope I catch you live then. Take care.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right, listen up. Hold on to your seats. Grab your girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.